It's good to see me, isn't it? Welcome to Reviewlijam, the show where I review whatever the hell I want, because it's my show, and not yours. And breathe. So, I've tried to script this multiple times and it hasn't worked, so I'm just gonna rant for however long this is. The next couple of weeks I might review some other West End shows. I might review, I don't know, Emily in Paris. That came out a couple of days ago. I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want because, as I said, my show, not yours. Today, I'm reviewing the West End production of The Devil Wears Prada, currently playing at the Dominion Theatre, because I just got back from London and I saw loads of shows. It features music by Elton John, lyrics by Shaina Taube and Mark Sonnenblick, the book by Kate Weatherhead, and direction and choreography by Jerry Mitchell. Blah, blah, blah. That's so boring. Right off the bat, 3.5, 4 stars. It's a fairly faithful adaptation of the film, with a few minor changes, a couple of bigger changes, but we'll get into it. Overall, though, it's the type of show that you could go and see with family or people who aren't really interested in theatre. It reminded me a lot of Mamma Mia. Not a bad thing. Honestly, I thought it was really good. I've honestly been listening to the cast recording every day since I saw it. Not sure what that says about me, but yeah, the music is catchy. Elton does a good job, which I think that he doesn't always do a good job. I find Elton John's music very hit or miss, but with this, the songs are catchy. They don't break the mold of what musical theatre can be, but they're catchy. I think that some songs I would happily skip, including when I was sat in the theatre, I was waiting for it to be over. But then songs like the end of Act 1 are really good. I really like Miranda's Girl, especially on a re-listen. So, what is The Devil Wears Prada about? It follows Andy Sachs as she journeys into the world of fashion, getting a job at Runway, which is the fictional version of Vogue. And it follows her as the second assistant to Miranda Priestley, who is very loosely inspired by Anna Wintour. Watch the film. The film is very, very good. There is a sequel coming out which has broken Meryl Streep's rule of never doing sequels. That should tell you how monumental the film was when it came out. And honestly, that is why I went to see the musical, was because The Devil Wears Prada was so important to me as a child. Honestly, seeing fashion as something to aspire to, but also to see it shown as important. I love fashion, but it's often seen as less than, or something for privilege. But yes, The Devil Wears Prada is very privileged society. However, it's so many people's jobs. And I think that The Devil Wears Prada showcases that fashion isn't just about what people put on their bodies. It is something that is worth billions and is so important, not just as self-expression, but within cultures. I mean, my first thought is Diwali, where you wear colourful clothing, or church clothing, or even like weddings, and it's such a cultural phenomenon, is what we put on our bodies and how important it can be. That is what I think makes The Devil Wears Prada so special. I think that the film maybe does a better job at explaining that. So, let's talk about the music. I think that the music is good. It's very catchy. It's very fun. It doesn't do anything special. It honestly, I spoke before about how the show reminded me a lot of Mamma Mia. Yeah, it's that fun, vibrant, but nothing breaking the mold of musical theatre. I also think it reminds me of Kinky Boots, which, fun fact, Cyndi Lauper, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, did the music for that. So Elton John and Cyndi Lauper obviously come from the pop world, so there's probably some influence from that. It could also be that the actor that plays Nigel also played Lola in Kinky Boots. And this is a very me thing because I saw him as Lola in Kinky Boots. And I think that they were the same character to an extent. That could just be a me issue. But it was noticeable and sometimes took me out of it. But overall, music really good. They didn't take any risks, which on the one hand, I think is very clever for this type of show, bringing a well-beloved film into musical form. You want people to go in and know what they're expecting, particularly because this is going to draw in the type of audience that maybe don't go to see musical theatre shows all the time. It's not your, say, Cabaret, or what else is breaking the mold at the minute? Six, to an extent, where they challenge the musical theatre concepts. You're getting a more casual crowd, I would say. But on the other hand, it drags sometimes. I think that Act 2 particularly doesn't necessarily have any show-stopping numbers. I really like Nigel's song Scene, but it's just a really nice ballad. It's nothing special. And I think that that is one critique that I have of the show as a whole, is there's nothing. Andy's I Want song isn't, well, she has multiple I Want songs from the first number. It's a lovely song, but it doesn't. I could see this show very quickly becoming the type of show that you see in amateur theatres every couple of years somewhere. Which, don't get me wrong, I grew up in amateur theatre. I think that amateur theatre has some of the most talented people in it. And it doesn't deserve enough recognition, particularly in the UK. However, it's also lower budget, which means that we can't do things. I mentioned Cabaret earlier. You can't do Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club because that is a very intricate show with all of the pre-show and the in the round. There isn't facilities for that in a lot of amateur places. So I think that this will have a very long life, like Legally Blonde, in a lot of amateur place shows, which I think works a lot to the benefit of this show, because it gets bums in seats. As a West End production, though, I think that it is doing very well for a reason. But I think that that reason is the cast, not necessarily the writing. The writing is very clever, though. Particularly Bon Voyage, the Act 2 opener, is so quirky and clever. There's a line in Bon Voyage which is, she eats saturated fats, and the hot doctor says, oh, darling, that'll kill you. And Emily in response says, oh, do you promise? Referring to Andy, it's those moments that are very special. And this show adds a lot of humor that the original material was sometimes lacking, because it's funny in this Better Than You way, the film, whereas I think that the show is a lot more relatable. I think that Miranda's Girl is a really good I Want number for the Act 1 closer. But I think that, once again, it's nothing special. It's an I Want song, which is, I want to succeed. And it feels like it was written for the actress who plays Andy, because there's a lot of high notes in it, which shows off Andy's voice spectacularly. But I don't know whether a lot of other actresses could step in and do it as naturally as Andy. I saw, who I will very quickly check the name of, because, I mean, I'll go through everyone's performances later, but everyone deserves a shout out. This cast is insane. Stevie Dock was my Andy Sachs, who is insanely talented and felt like a very good Andy. I guess this feels like a natural progression into the cast, in which, actually, I'm gonna go to the cast biographies, because there are a couple of things I want to point out. So I had the privilege of seeing Vanessa Williams as Miranda Priestley, who is so talented. And feels so right as Miranda. The only critique I have for Vanessa is that, and this, once again, I saw a matinee show where there were a lot of school kids, and the audience was a little bit dry. And I know from experience on stage that if the audience is dry, you're working a lot harder for a lot less. So I don't want to automatically say that Vanessa Williams does something wrong. It could be an off day. She could have been sick. But from the performance that I saw, sometimes she didn't command the stage as well as she could have. In the sense of, every time that Talia Halford, who plays Emily, was on stage, you watched her. You knew where she was and what she was saying, because she lit up that stage. Whereas Vanessa Williams, who plays this almost titular character, where she very rarely sings, she needs that stage presence to make up for it, where you're always aware of where she is and what she's doing. And some of this I'm going to attribute to costume design as well. I think her opening outfits were beautiful, and there's a moment that I'm going to touch on later about Miranda's costuming, which is a slight critique. Stevie Dock as Andy felt like a very, very good straight man to this eccentric cast of characters, because that's what Andy is, which is a tough casting, because you have Miranda, you have Nigel, you have Emily, and then Andy is the person we follow, but she has to be the straight man as well, because she doesn't come from this life. We're learning with her. And I think that Stevie Dock does a wonderful job of this. The reason why I said earlier some of the songs felt like they were written for her is because she won Mamma Mia, I Have a Dream. I think last year, 2023, 2024, where they were looking for the new Sophie and Sky of Mamma Mia on the West End, which I also think could possibly be why some of it sounded like Mamma Mia. If they already had her in mind, and if she was there for the workshop, I won't check that, but it could be why some of it sounds like Mamma Mia if they had her in mind already. I think that she was amazing at the task of leading us into the world and bringing us in with her. Her vocals were stunning. They were almost flawless. And she hits high notes with this intricate breath work, which is something to be desired within seasoned professionals, which for Stevie, whose only credits are Mamma Mia and Here We Go Again, she already is a seasoned professional. However, Talia Halford stole the show. She was incredible. Every time she was on stage saying a line, her two big songs being How to Survive at Runway, which is my favourite song in the show because it's so camp and quirky, and Bon Voyage, were hilarious. They were note perfect. They showed a lot of Emily's character. I think that Talia has outplayed a lot of the people on stage with her, which is insane because this is her West End debut. And you have veterans here like James Darsh as Christian or Matt Henry as Nigel. Of course, Vanessa Williams has almost 2 full columns dedicated to herself because she just is a talent. However, Talia Halford gives everyone a run for their money. Nigel, I mentioned, was played by Matt Henry, who played Lola in Kinky Boots, won an Olivier Award. Yes, won an Olivier Award for that performance. I think took a lot of it and brought it to Nigel. He was very good. Vocals stunning. I'm going to just say this about everyone, but the vocals were perfect. I can't explain how excited I was by the vocals in this, which is rare nowadays. But I might have a review for it coming out. I might not. in this same trip, I went to see Moulin Rouge for a second time. And the vocals were perfect, but there wasn't that added extra. There wasn't that je ne sais quoi. Whereas here, everyone was on top form. It looked like they were having fun performing, particularly Keelan Macaulay as Nate. Particularly during I Only Love You for Your Body, where he ran around that stage with so much energy and glee. I think that everyone was on their top form, which, once again, for a matinee show, was brilliant to see. Professionalism. Not... I think every show on the West End is professionalism, of course. But the standards don't drop. And I would love to go and see if it's any better during an evening show. I might. But I live in Northern Ireland, so it'll be a while. Yeah, the ensemble was pitch perfect. They played their roles to a T. I don't want to not mention the ensemble, because the ensemble made this show what it was. And it's a big ensemble as well. It's not this small show. The set design was gorgeous. I'm not sure if it was a reference to Moulin Rouge, but when they're in France, they bring out an Eiffel Tower, which could have been straight from the Moulin Rouge set. I'm not sure if it's a copy or an homage. I didn't necessarily like it in Moulin Rouge, and I don't necessarily like it here. I don't think we need the Eiffel Tower to know they're in Paris. But apart from that, I think that the set design was gorgeous, especially the set in which Andy's changes into this, like, more polished version of herself. That set was gorgeous, and I think that... Let's actually find who did the set design, because I want to name everybody. And, you know, maybe I should have prepared this before. Probably. But I didn't. Who did the set design? Tim Hatley. Winner of 3 Olivier Awards, 4 Drama Desk Awards, and 3 Tony Awards. That should tell you everything you need to know. Yeah, I think that... And I'll give a note to Greg Barnes, in that the costumes were gorgeous. Except Miranda Priestley's Met Gala, dress, in which I found it a little plain. I'm not sure if there's a photo. They might have one on the Instagram. I'll see if I can insert it. But I think that for this being a fashion show, Miranda Priestley wasn't always the best looking one on stage. There were a lot of intricate outfits, and for Miranda Priestley, this goddess of fashion, not to be the best looking one on stage was a little bit disappointing at times. The only time when I think it's acceptable, towards the end when Andy is becoming this, like, mega fashion person. Do I have anything else I want to say? No. So, final thoughts. I thought this was a bloody good show. I think you should bring your parents to see it. Does it break any boundaries? And if you're looking for this, like, majestic, brilliant, best thing you've ever seen, this might not be the show for you. But if you're looking for a good night out, go and see The Devil Wears Prada. Because I think you're gonna have a good time. And I think that the songs could be stuck in your head for weeks. But don't go in thinking that it's going to be a titan of the industry. Maybe I'll see you next time. Maybe not, if I post this. Toodles.